Sometimes you wake up to a day that was just made for crying, prepping for what follows through the odd melancholy of uncertain anxiety. The sky is overcast, not quite gray, but muted and drowned out behind the clouds. The beautiful blue is saving itself for a day better than this one. The summer breeze is weak, rustling the leaves of trees only in small, hardly perceptible ways from your open bedroom window. Each small hint that manages to pass through the screen and against your face provides a chill that's been unknown in the months prior, when the oppressive heat made you wish for anything else. It's just enough to form an internal debate about AC on or windows open. You could flip the switch on that window unit, but the calm of the few birds who decide to sing and the passing empty subway cars make for a better mood than the ever-present drone of increasingly expensive electricity. Maybe it's justifying leaving it off for the high cost, maybe it's because you don't feel a deserved relief from the heat, or maybe you actually are just poetic and semi-tragic enough a person to find value in that gentle breeze, not wanting to shut it and the remaining dregs of summer out before their last gasps. Each hint of the breeze brings your mind back to these details, and the hint of tears in your eyes, that stinging sensation at the lower eyelid which brings the upper further down to compensate. You pause your task each time, focusing just enough to drown out the unconscious welling of emotions which seeks to dampen your eyes. You wonder why that feeling is so strong. Maybe it was the exact match between a song called "The Summer Ends" and the gradual cooling and shortening of days which designates exactly that. As an adult, summer is hardly much different from the other three seasons, and yet there's always something still special about it. Coming out of the freezing winter which traps you inside, a season which cools down the times and places where life happens in more vibrant colors and expressions, the storms of spring which quite literally dampen the mood, and the autumn which buries the memories of them all beneath the warm but always fading shades of falling leaves, summer offers that unique opportunity of dreaming. Each morning is the start of your story, where you can actually make like it's a movie and sprawl out on the grass in a park, taking in all these feelings and delivering some grand action from them, where city-sponsored events and friend-created parties alike fill the air with the sounds of life, caught in the dense humidity of still air, where you smell a distant bonfire and see lights strung up on balconies, undeniable signs of life being lived, where you can wander the streets, accompanied either by great friends or the summer drive to make more, a drive which makes one feel never truly alone, where even if you spend the whole night speaking no words, you delight in passing by the stories of others, the background character overhearing first dates and gleeful gatherings, smiling through the whirlwind of so many lives occurring at once. It is a feast of emotions, an intoxicating human spirit, nature seeking to curtail our activities with heat, and our own creations even more as concrete and asphalt radiate it back up, and yet we go out and fill that air with our energy still, our smoke and our lights and our laughs. It's the time where children go out and play, where adults take vacations to the beach, where everyone and anyone has much less excuse not to live. It's easy to plan in the summer, to dream of everything which will make the season, its heat and its rising costs worthwhile. To dream of picnics and of fires, to dream of parties outside and drinks inside to cool off, to dream of romances which expend all of our heat into the air to make it even more unbearable, and yet we do so anyway for the most ideally unideal experience. It is a time of hope to make the future that your past self dreamt of. And yet, when you hear the rustling of trees outside die down, the chirping birds fly further away, as the window screen stops beating back and forth, you remember that the soundtrack to summer doesn't last forever. Is there ever really enough time for those dreams to be made real? Soon it'll be too cold to make them so, instead spelling a closing of the window and of the mind alike. The season which once entailed endless freedom to achieve those simple wishes, thoughts of lemonade stands and biking to the park, proves itself unable to do so as an adult, where the stand has become an overpriced and too small apartment and the bike a slowly dying car. Under piles of concerns, the dreams shrink and wither away, slowly and unrecognizably becoming so much less than they once were. You make your excuses for why they shrunk again this year, your exhaustion from work, your friend's drama within the group, your city being too boring. Life simply presented you with many reasons why it couldn't be lived. The dreams begin to seal themselves away in the future once more, moving from a consideration for next week to next month to next year, just as they did the year before, and before that, and before that. Like the song on repeat as these feelings wash over you, lose track of how many times it started and how many it ended, wondering when those dreams came to be so. Was it all the way back to the exit doors of that high school you graduated so many years ago now? Where that summer breeze hit you as an adult for the first time, where you could set out to be on your own with friends you made in a place you chose for your reasons and on your time. Where the idea of freedom was still alive and well, weighed upon by the hard work of young adulthood, but not yet structured into a box of weekend trips and 2 weeks of vacation a year at best. It traded the endless time off for late nights, the local park for midnight drives home, the absolute whimsy for a more tactical and adult expression of desire, but it was still alive and well. Maybe those tears to be well up a little harder on that thought, forcing your hands to pull down the corners of your eyes to keep them in as you desperately try to refocus vision on your task, because you think about how all that change is for the better. You look back on your past self, who once felt that same breeze, and realize how little they did with it still, how you desperately wish you could re-enter that time and place with this self, reliving a life in a temporary grace within it that you once wasted. You look out the car window while sitting in traffic, seeing all the sloppily dressed students walking past for the first few times, and something deep within you wants to yell out, "Don't waste it! Don't forget the importance of this time! Live this life while you have it!" Hoping to be the inciting event for someone else's exciting story, at least. With the perspective of years of servitude and responsibility unknown, you look back at the time they're currently in and know for a fact that you could live it better. You feel it in your core like a very driving force of your being, this anti-nostalgia which proves our growth, which shows we are alive. We are alive as us, beings rising higher and higher in our self-discovery, yelling, "This is you! This is your story! Don't waste it! Don't waste it!" A feeling you know so strongly, despite the wasted summer which just passed. It reminds you that yes, you did change very much in all these years, through all these new people and experiences which track across places you'd never imagined before. Your clothes are all different, the closet they're in has changed many times, and the face those shirts are pulled over shows subtle hints of all of that which made it so, ones we begin to tug out in the mirror to examine their depths. Much has changed, and yet, just as those early years felt wasted, so too did this summer. This time those phantom tears come with a wipe of the nose and a sniffle or two, the sound of impending tears mixed with cheerful yells and the rumbling of tires on ruined asphalt as the children outside pass by in meandering parabolic paths on their bikes. They move without real direction, drifting aimlessly and yet always forward, always moving away, disappearing from the extents of that same view you've seen every day for years now. The scene pairs with a thought of tragic pseudo-poetry. You can be aware of many silly facts about the self, this ever-changing beast which our consciousness emerges from and which we experience the world through, that is never truly defined, always changing with the impulses we feel dragging us to homeostasis, always different as the years pass with new needs and new desires changing our opinions, always new because to live itself is to change, and the only way it ends is in death. You can be aware of all of this, that even without your effort you will grow and change, and with your effort, you can direct that change at the person you want to be. You can know that this is what you've done time and time again. You can know the truth deep down, that these feelings are just inherent to life in the world our ancestors left us with, that it isn't your fault. But none of that prevents the tears welling up when we know that change was never enough. When we know that the summer still ends. That breeze still rolls in, carrying with it the slightly sweet scent of summer. Of flowers and of barbecue, of citrus and clean sheets, of mystery cologne or perfume mixing with the smell of home. It passes under your nose for just a moment so brief before moving well beyond you, there, so powerful but only for such a brief moment that you're left to ponder its contents through the depths of memory. Where did you smell this before? Was it in the halls of that once hated but now envied school? The first days of work before the novel sensations went numb? That spur of the moment venture out into a night unknown? What time and what place? It leads to entire minutes lost desperately trying to catch its remnants. Vague and undefined, it can only remind you certainly of change, moving from place to place so quickly and however it pleases, around the trees and tall buildings just the same. Like the kids on their bikes, it goes everywhere and anywhere, escaping your grasp whatever you do or don't. It's so quick, so unyielding to everything we make, even if it's buffeted for a moment, a transience and freedom envied so greatly. Like it, we change. Time and time again, we do, and we know we do, but unlike it, the change never feels enough to be so free. The person we want to be always the construct of a present self, but under the direction of a past one. We reach it, we realize that the two don't match, and the positions move back. The present self becomes the past, and its desires fail to meet the next future one. Dissatisfaction becomes the act of having a self at all. Like the trees were once saplings, the rain and runoff found its way to the roots, and an unconscious desire was drunk up to support a fantastical and strong growth. One sprout becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, each branch bearing its own new leaves to catch the breeze with, each with its faults and flaws. In ways which could never be predicted despite their slow and deliberate path, it grows into something new, something unique and beautiful, and yet something static. The roots change from supporting growth to maintaining a stature, to holding firm against the winds and the rains, to holding on to the life one has rather than grasping it anew. The trees, too, are unchanging by the winds that carry a dying summer heat. The skyline is full of these trees up on the hill, turning a view of the town beyond into nothing more than wavering greens across a muted blue, growing ever more gray with the impending dark clouds. It's a shape and color you've seen time and time again, a familiar humidity and temperature, as the current downswing in weather meets the same point on the upswing months prior. You remember some place to match it all, another time of that feel and temperature. A better time of that feel and temperature. The party in an abandoned lot, the bonfire with friends of friends, the hobby convention, or the meetup of interests. It was a place new and exciting in some way, one of those moments where your past self succeeded enough in making something novel occur, where the branch bent just enough to touch another trees beside it, where a mighty gust almost seemed to push you forward into a new world, half with your will and half against it. It was the discomforting chill of a spring storm, ripping and tearing across life with rains to renew it before the heat struck. It pushed you right into the places and into the others, making connections which were sure to persist into the summer and make it a dream to remember. The thoughts and wills of others collected into a tempest of human energy, swirling those branches round and round to weave into new shapes and forms against the sky, with clouds roaring past, all caught up in the excitement of life. It propelled everyone to move beyond where they thought they could be and into the realm of desires, of chaos unknown in only the best kinds of ways. The spring tempest was the rising of energy, the build-up to your story, the movie of your life which would take place in the heat. It was the same temperature, the same sensation as this current one, but it meant something so much different, that slight discomforting chill of spring matching the unease as you treaded new ground, unsure whether to bring that jacket or leave it behind. You met new people, you did new things, entered new spaces where each and every person had the same feeling and connected from it. Where an ask if this was the drink line, or a joke about common interests, was enough to spark those feelings into action, starting a fire in the heat of human bodies to warm against that chill, to grow into the summer. You think of how it felt so easy right there, where you could feed off that energy and a dream felt so real, like a gathering storm of everyone's pent-up desires and wishes. It was a storm to get lost in, gleefully playing in the rain, splashing like nothing mattered. It was fun, it was love, it was meals out in places unknown, it was a night in the park and a day on the town, it was ideally an ideal like every movie scene, and it was exhausting. A storm has energy, but a storm must be weathered when it grows too much. When it lasts, it brings chaos, it brings destruction. It brings sandbags to doors and flooding to basements. It brings cleanup and recovery. It brings responsibility to make up for its recklessness and lack of care. Those new things, that unknown ground tread upon, formed an exhaustion, a sense of calm to balance out the novelty. The complacency of saying, "What a great night, we should do it again sometime," but setting no date. To be satisfied with the beginnings of change, with the concept which is greater than the action. Because as we change, that change becomes normal. It becomes something to be maintained, something to be performed in muscle memory rather than in deeper thought. It becomes sandwiches packed for work on Sunday night and towels folded up for later showers, freshly brushed teeth before bed and earbuds on the train. It becomes the mundane that we sought to escape, and eventually we seek change from what once was so. Anything which is new can become old. And so you never acted on that feeling of change, but rather held the idea. You dipped into new worlds, imagined new places, passed by new people. You kept them distant but novel, important exactly because of their lacked consistency. To save the hopes present in summer, to preserve them pure and untainted by reality, you dreamt instead. Warm afternoons spent in bed with ideas that are better than reality. The harsh rustle of leaves outside from a powerful gust snaps you back out of the dream, where the tears have almost broken their boundary. A flurry of sniffling, of looking up and tugging at the lids, and blinking just manages to keep them in. Because you know what came after that feeling of excitement in the following eves. You know that those exchange numbers led to no texts, those conversations to connections only temporary. You know in hindsight how quickly the first became the 31st with so few distinct memories. You know it was just a dream. As the evening turned to night, as the chill grew greater and everyone felt the pull of sleep once more, they remembered it was time to dream and not time to live. The lot emptied out, the fire died down, and the doors to the centers closed. Lives spilled out into the streets, back to their individual, isolated vessels to return along the city's veins to their homes. That stunning scene from atop the hill, where the highways glow like the veins of life, you realize that it isn't life heading out to new places, but life returning home to old ones. The maintenance of it, not the living of it, took hold once more as they warmed their own beds and rested for what would come tomorrow. Plans already made and responsibilities well held already. Work to pay for another chance at life the next week, families to be cared for, and friends who need supported. Your mind drifts off to all these things, to connections, to duties, to tasks and joys alike, to family and to friends, to cars and bikes, to breezes and trees, to weddings and funerals, to birds chirping and to children crying out, to oil changes that need to be done and walks to the bar down the street, to shopping for shampoo and conditioner and to washing dishes each day, to cereal spilled in that annoying crack between the counter sections and the grime stuck in the shower's corner that you can't quite get with a rag, to the time your lover made you coffee in the morning and how your father taught you to ride a bike so many summers ago, to anything and to everything, to how full life actually is, to how so full of this and that it is that we could list for hours what we hate and what we love, that there's no room for more, that we don't have empty spaces for new things to slot nicely into, but only pockets at a time for people and places and things to enter temporarily. That this feeling, this hope of summer, is most like the temporary clearings between branches as the breeze blows them together and apart, dim light creeping through only for a moment at a time before they snap back to the best position to survive, and nothing more. The hope of summer, not the actions of summer, is what life really is. You smell the scent of rain carried on the increasing gusts, see the sky start to embrace its gray tones and darker shades, and realize that today is the same. That the sunlight won't break past these clouds and warm souls out for connection once more. That you won't make good on those plans for today with this brewing storm, and that today will be lost, like so many others before it, to factors which you could never help nor control, no matter your actions or feelings. That now, when the presence of summer's end feels so debilitating, when it makes you want to scream and shout and burst out, it then forbids it and makes a mockery of your emotions by proving that those endless hours of light which make dreams possible can be taken away anytime, anywhere. That like the fleeing back along the city's veins, today is a day where necessity, where shelter and comfort rule above all else, and we seek nothing more than to postpone the dreams and their endless cycle once more. The first drop falls, splashing off the screen and splattering the windowsill. The second follows, rounding the crease your nose creates with the cheek. A third and fourth, fifth and sixth ping off the glass, gaining speed on their downwards path as they pull together and grow heavy. 7 and 8, 9 and 10 do the same in the outer corner of the eye, welling up and falling rapidly as a batted lash catches them just right. 11, 12, all the teens and 20s, 30, 40, 50, gaining too rapidly to count, begin to follow suit, turning the gentle streams down the pane into a messy splatter, the sill soaking in wet splashes past the ledge, as the children outside run home and the traffic starts to make the distinctive rushing sound of wet tires. The sound grows and grows, roof tiles battered by heavy drops and puddles outside splashing, all to drown out the sound of tissues ripped from a box and the bang of elbows falling on the desk. A puddle of its own is forming there, your head hanging above it, rising and lowering with the spasm of shoulders and the rapid convulsing of the chest. A cry is lost in the endless drone of falling water upon glass and roof, the sound of dying dreams lost in the sound of a dying summer. As tears and rain fall alike, you're in mourning of a life so full and yet still to be lived, and the summer ends.